this stuff out. I'm hoping my confusion will go to your benefit. Because I just figured something out, and I feel really lied to, and I'm not super happy. I'm happy to have figured it out. I'm happy to get to share. I think they tricked us. I think our culture tricked us yet again. This time with the you don't need anyone. Yet another version of the you don't need anyone thing. They started in on women first. You don't need a man. You don't need a man. You don't need no man. Mm-mm. And there's a truth to that. I'm not saying that there isn't. I know that there is a deeper truth in that. But there's an even deeper lie. And then I realized, I was like, well, that works for men too. What? I don't need a woman. No, wrong. I do. There really isn't much of a point to life. So if we can't find someone and mate, if we can't find those things which best help us pretend to give life a point, some kind of ways of voluntarily adopting responsibility, yet it's interesting because everything in life is a lie. Life never approaches you directly. It's very sneaky, this life. It may well be true that the best way, one of the best ways, to have the highest odds of having the highest quality partner, to have the highest odds of partnering at all, and to have the highest odds of having the highest quality partner, it may well be the case that focusing on yourself and assuming you don't need one is actually the best way to do that. So life is sneaky. Life is very tricky. It may well be best to pretend you don't need it, even to yourself. Just as for the human female, it's best to pretend you don't know when you're ovulating. Have this ovulation hidden not just from the males of your species, but even mostly from yourself. So life is sneaky. I could be right and wrong at the same time. I could be wrong for the right reasons or something like that. It could be best to think of it as if, I don't need a man, I don't need a woman. And then you live your life, and you actually develop yourself, and oops, you attracted the highest quality man or woman or other as possible. What a coinkydink. But here's another side of that for you. What if they just lied to us again? Like the abusive partner we fall for time after time after time. Told us another story. Another story that benefits itself, benefits the culture, at our expense. You see, one of the things I realized, 5 or 6 years ago maybe, is that we have this vestigial, like a vestigial organ is like if you've got, you know how every now and then someone's born with a little tail? It's normally pretty funky looking. It's not like a big, it's nothing anyone would get elective surgery for. But it's there, so that's a vestige. Snakes have like a dew claw, or maybe it's dogs that have a dew claw. Anyway, a thing that's left over, from evolutionary. Almost like how you're a fish for a little while in utero. So that's a vestigial developmental stage. The old recapitulation theory turns out to be, of course, somewhat correct and, of course, somewhat incorrect. So ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny was their fancy phrase for, oh, we can study our own evolutionary development by looking at the stages of an embryo as it develops. And it turns out that it works better the other way around. It's kind of like, by knowing the evolutionary development, you can kind of see it in the development of the fetus. But anyway, you were a fish. You actually still are a fish. You're just a fish that goes around on land. Mammals are fish. It's just as true to say that mammals are fish as it is to say that humans are mammals. Humans are primates, primates are mammals, and mammals are fish. We have these really arbitrary little categories. We say that humans are primates. Okay, oh, we're back. Awesome. And then we say that humans are monkeys, and we're like, no. And then we say, but humans are simians, which is just a fancy word for monkey. So, okay, I got distracted. I do that. I'm reluctant to make my little point. I suppose because that's all I got. Because I'm really confused. Which way should I trick myself? What should I do? I don't need a woman? No, I do need a woman. No, I need to admit it. No, I need to not. See, you've got this tribe of two. We have vestigial tribalism in civilization. Anybody following contemporary politics is starting to wake up to that. So you've got all these tribal instincts, okay. And then there was all these overlapping tribalisms. You know, you could be a Republican and a Steelers fan, and I could be a Republican and a Broncos fan. But at the end of the day, what was your real tribe? Well, I think the tribalism that has been allowed us, that we've been still allowed to have, has long been the pair bond. And that makes sense for a number of reasons, probably because both tribalism in general and the pair bond in specific were something that they could not get rid of no matter how hard they tried, even if there ever were a conscious they. So I'm not actually hypothesizing that the elites were trying to do this thousands of years ago as our culture was developing. It's always more my hypothesis that our culture itself is a creature, an entity, that exists only in our heads, but we pass her down from generation to generation. That every tribe does this. Every tribe has a culture, and the culture itself can be considered to be an entity that exists and is trying to preserve itself. It's acting as if it's trying to preserve itself. Just like genes act as if they're trying to preserve themselves. You can even see how subcultures, like elements of a culture, kind of act to preserve themselves. So if you get into this whole debate, there's a wonderful debate. Apparently the science of this system of thought has stagnated to a great degree for the last 20 or 30 years, and there's a very informative and revelatory debate between Brett Weinstein and Richard Dawkins, the grand old man himself. And you know when a 70-year-old is still at the cutting, bleeding edge of a set of theories of a whole field of science, that it usually means, and I'm a Chomsky fan, and it probably usually means that field is in pretty bad shape. And that sort of appears to be the case here. Luckily, there are thinkers like Brett that have come along. In any case, so not to be too Dawkinsonian about this, not to be too dogmatically Dawkinsonian and think that these cultural elements, these memes, are replicating on their own, independent of our minds. That's taking it too far and obviously incorrect. I think anyone with a good head for this stuff who listens to that debate will instantly recognize that Brett is correct, even if he's saying things you've never thought before. Especially if you're an old-time Dawkins fan, is why you hadn't thought them before. So that is to say that this picture is a little bit more complicated than I'm presenting it. It's infinitely more complicated. But there is a thing where you've kind of got this culture that's a little bit against you. When the culture is serving the needs of the people who are passing it on, it's, I don't even know what the metaphor would be. It's a service. It's the greatest thing in their lives. But when a culture is not serving the needs of the people that are carrying it around, like, you could even take the example, not just of civilization, as if I'm so against civilization, which I do see the dysfunction of it, so, you know, in some sense I'm against it, but you could even take like the Plains Indians or all the natives of the United States area. You could say that their culture was fighting them. It had come to not serve them when we arrived, and they were so culturally unprepared to deal with us. It took the Plains Indians, for example, so long to finally kind of band together to try and repel the invaders that by then it was too late. Even though arguably if the Native Americans of the entire if Native Americans in general had not had their biased memes that prevented them from understanding what we were doing, the game that we were playing was so new and it was sort of incomprehensible to them. If they did not have that, their culture, and to some extent maybe their nature, it's human nature. You'll never know which human perceptions are cultural and natural. We'll probably be doing experiments on that till the end of time to try and tease it out, and we'll still never be sure. But if they had not, good arguments have been made that if they had banded together sooner, they could have easily repelled us, Westerners, and, you know, I don't know, maybe modernized on their own. Maybe there'd still be just nothing but indigenous lands in almost all of the Americas, or maybe just huge swaths. We'll never know, right? Just kind of like we'll never know what the world might have been like if the Nazis had won. It's interesting because in some sense you can just compare civilization itself to the Nazis. I mean, if you're honest with yourself about our past, you know, you look at like, I don't know, you look back on, you know, Western exploration and I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there's a novel about it. It's called After Dachau. It's basically like, what if the Nazis had won? What if we're living in a time thousands of years after the Nazis had won? What if we're all Nazis and we don't even know it anymore? We don't even think of it that way anymore. We're just the people. Anyway. So there's all these things, there's all these forces, there's all this stuff going on, you know, and it's so complicated. And it's so wonderful when it works. And a lot of why I keep leaving these records is because I just want to help pass on something, because I am going to abandon this effort. I can't hold this. I can't do this anymore. I need to start selectively closing my mind to certain things. I need to get this out. I had a dream, you know, and I thought I could be a helper. I thought I could help us out, and I was wrong. I need to help me out. And one of the ways I need to help me out is to allow myself to not just fall in love, but like submit to that process and become useful to like one person. Become really useful, nay, maybe even essential to like a person. And then let that spin off from there, like actually become useful to a set of friends, maybe useful to a business, some kind of venture that I'm a part of that gives me enough money to get by so that I'm useful to this one person. All of that, I already fucked up once. I already fell in love and refused to submit to that process and ran away scared. And maybe for the best, maybe I would have been a terrible partner for her, but it was daddy issues. It all went back to my father. This is to me the core of why the statistics are so against you if you are a man raised without his father. Number one, it's because you're missing your tribe. And so you're missing that half. You're missing what little vestigial tribe you had left to you, the core family. You're missing half of that. But here's the thing, for me at least. I don't know what happens to other guys or what happens to girls, but for me at least, when I was like 4 years old and Dad left us, like that was kind of it for me. Like something broke inside. And then when I fell madly in love with this girl, and it was time to give myself, it was time to abandon control. Like I had won. The seduction was like complete. And here we are holding each other in each other's arms, and like it's time to just give in. And she's just told me that she's not so sure. Like, kind of given me a version of the friend speech, the just friends talk, you know. And then all of a sudden, I'm holding her, and she's just done exactly what I said. And like something had come over me and said, like, I just wanted to give her a hug goodbye, you know. And like I was like, get on your bed and get on your knees. Because she had a really tall bed and she's a really short girl. So she hops on her bed and gets on her knees, and then I'm holding her, and then all of a sudden it's the moment, you know? And now all of a sudden this is the new truth. Like, she's ready to be kissed. But I wasn't ready. I couldn't do it, you know? Because I couldn't allow someone to be in control. I couldn't give up control. Like, she had fought it, and I had won, and now I was fighting it. And I couldn't let her win. And so long story short, I basically ran away from that. We had some more interactions and I saw her some more, but through several more iterations and chances, I couldn't submit. I couldn't give in to the process. And I think it just goes back to those daddy issues. So I think that might ultimately be a kind of a chunk at the core of the whole thing that puts you in such bad shape if you're a man without his father. I mean, you're statistically way more likely to commit crimes, to get arrested, and basically not get with the program. I mean, I know I'm playing some linguistic tricks here, you know, a little semantical game, but you're not getting with the program. You're not getting with the process. You're not submitting to and trusting not just the outer world, the whole society. You're less likely to submit to and trust the inner process that wants to co-opt your brain and turn you into somebody's bitch, but in the best possible way. So that's all I have to say about that. Whether you should believe that or not, I have no idea. Maybe it is to some extent better to, of course, there has to be some truth to the basic concept of like, take care of yourself and invest in yourself, and don't just go around looking for love, because that's not how it's going to happen. But on the other hand, you know, did our culture just find yet another sneaky way to keep us in the matrix? To win even more so that we're her little bitch and not each other's? Did she find a way to divide the pathetic little tribe of two, the one little vestige, the one thing we had left? We're not tribal with each other in general. We're sure as heck not tribal with our coworkers. We're not tribal with our families even. You look at family structure, and if they're lucky, you look at a man and a woman, or two men or two women, or maybe in some very rare cases, multiple, you know, polyamorous men and women in a core. I haven't personally seen it. The closest thing I've seen, and it's not this, I've seen multi-person marriages, and the healthiest, closest thing to a true multi-person marriage I have seen, and it is sort of centered around a charismatic individual who kind of runs the show. And he submits to his partners, but honestly, it's just not quite what I'm talking about. The closest thing that I've ever seen or heard of it, and it's two individuals I'm sure, and I think they could be gay or straight. I'm pretty sure, you know, like, I don't think that I've heard of this happening any more or less, except because gay people are a little less often. But yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted. The point is, every now and then, okay, wrong or right as I may be about poly, or about how the orientation, or about whether or not I really don't think, I'm honestly asking myself, do I, in my experience of what I'm kind of imagining and projecting into the world, does it generally need to be like a man and a woman? And it's like, no, the answer to that's no. But does it, and I'm a polyamorous, like I believed in this for a long time, but does it kind of need to be I think you're just so lucky to even get it with one other person that the odds just go way down when you try and mix in another person, because it's some kind of crazy proper submission to each other. And so this one little thing that we get that we don't even share with our kids because our culture doesn't let us have a true team with the kids. It's always a hierarchy. Even the family unit is notoriously used to always be a hierarchy with like the man in charge and then the woman second and then the kids down below that. And I don't know how true all that is. You need to look up some Karen Strawn to see if that myth is actually true. But to the extent that it was true, you know, yeah, it's just, no, this is getting crazy. I'm sorry. Okay, take everything I said for the last 3 or 4 minutes and honestly just, maybe that's just titillation, you know? But try not to let it destroy the core of what I'm trying to share. What I'm trying to share, so that I honestly hope it's like that people suffer less than I've had to, just confusing myself and being so clueless. It's like, look, there is this inner nature. You do want what you want, man. I know I sound so stupid. I'm sorry, but I'm not better at this. You do want what you want. Don't let the fact that our culture programmed you and that you're waking up from that confuse you about which things. Don't let it confuse you more. Don't let her take away the one little thing you've got left. You probably, because of our culture's dogmatic ways of raising kids, won't submit to your kids. You won't submit to your nature as a mother and like hold the baby for the first 6 months. I mean, maybe if you read Jean Leidloff, maybe you will. But the one damn thing that you find of significant other and you just submit to yourself and your own nature, and you just become something kind of like one with this other person, where the unit of selection is the two of you, where you kind of are a baby, inadequate, mostly not really there tribe. And it's not like these political tribes or these, I don't know, sporting tribes. It's not this awful tribalism that's so negative and dysfunctional. It's the one really awesome thing about tribalism, you know? It's being more than just yourself. Don't let this culture win and atomize you even more to where you're just you. I don't know where that leaves you, you know? I don't know where that leaves us. I honestly think maybe love is the answer, and that was the biggest trick they pulled. Convincing us that we are our own gods. We went from being animist, tribal, wild creatures that felt like the tribe and the environment itself was God. The gods were made of the earth, was the God. To having this distant, remote, abstract God, and then God died and we became our own gods, and we've got this secular humanism now where we just worship our own race. Now they're trying to kill that off and make an entire culture of pure narcissistic individualism. Trying to turn you into your own God. I took that stuff way too literally. So I'm out. As soon as I can get away from all this theory crap. I'm a terrible philosopher anyway. I mean, can't organize my thoughts for crap. So I'm moving on from this stuff. I'm going to do what it takes to become a simple-minded fool. Find some contentment and peace. Because all this complexity, all this, it's just... Because I think I know where you're coming from. You're trying to give your tribe the whole civilization. Maybe. Or maybe, you know, and maybe you kind of identify more with parts of it than others, obviously, you know. You're trying to give your tribe the benefit of your wisdom, you know, the understanding, it's just everybody's trying to do their part, right? But there's got to be a balance, I guess. I don't know if this even makes any sense. They say take care of yourself, right? That's the part that's at the core of this that is actually wise, is like take care of yourself, you know? Love yourself so that others may love you. All that stuff. Okay, there's the stuff that does have that kernel of wisdom in it that's truth. It's not just some trick from our culture trying to atomize us and all this paranoid crap that I just talked about for half an hour. What does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean build up your stuff and get a nice car and have all the things? Does it mean like it did to me? Does that mean like get your head screwed on straight and get all these theories right? And no, I don't think so. I think they created a false dichotomy. Taking care of yourself does mean allowing yourself to submit to yourself and all of the natural processes that are going to make for a fulfilling and complete life for you. I just no longer wish for you to have hardly any of what I've done for myself. I take it all back. Don't go travel and see the world and broaden all of your horizons. Don't read Chomsky and don't read fucking Daniel Quinn. Don't try and get it all in there, stuff it into the head so that you can get it. Don't try and get it. Don't try and get it. It's like the ultimate trick. It's the ultimate trick that'll turn you into some kind of Agent Smith, not living in the life. Don't try and step back from life and understand it. Engage with it. Live it. Be of this earth. Be in the muck. And see that it's not so gritty and grimy. It's not so Hobbesian. It's not so bad. It's beautiful. The muck of your own body, your own life, your own feelings, your own desires, your own innate glomminess with yourself and those around you. Do that. And let whatever else comes come. Don't be like me and become useless in the name of helping to save the whole world, helping to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Because God forbid that you succeed and become like, just, okay, here we go. Maybe for once I can make use of Chomsky as in a useful way. Well, You don't need to read his books. You don't need to understand, oh God, Power. Understanding Power is like probably the best book, but it's like his life. He never put that shit first. It might look like it because it almost looks like he's like 10 people. But he never did. He put Carol and family first. They really did. Even back when it looked like he might get arrested and spend some time in jail. But I don't think they ever really put the activism first. They put each other first. He put himself first. When he was in school and he realized that it was all bull, he didn't quit. He submitted more. I know it takes all kinds, and I'm not saying that if you're the more rebellious type that has to... I'm saying, honestly, this is my declaration of faith in humanity. I keep having to rediscover that. I keep telling people, if you're a liberal if you're a lefty who thinks that if you're a lefty activist type who thinks that people left to their own devices will not naturally gravitate away from, say, neo-Nazism and toward things that make more sense. If you're the kind of person who's like, no, I support Antifa because somebody needs to show up and battle these people's ideologies. I do. If you don't have faith that human beings left with a choice will naturally not become neo-Nazis, then I don't understand what you're fighting for. Because to me, they will. That's why you don't need, when idiots show up with tiki torches, you don't need half as stupid idiots showing up to fight them. Be more like that European town that sponsors the neo-Nazi march, so that every mile they walk gets donated to the Anti-Defamation League or something. Google it. This is my declaration of faith in humanity. Really do. It's not just about like that lame follow your bliss. Like, I appreciate the way that CGP Grey is like very anti like follow your bliss. I think he's got some really solid points. But I think that's the problem is not that people were following their bliss. The problem is that they're really not. If you're really following your bliss, you're following your contentment, your safety, you're doing things that go with a flow. There is a synchronicity to be found within civilization. That's the other big part where I was wrong. I mean, I used to think things that are so stupid, I almost can't believe it. Like everything they taught you was wrong, so just do the opposite? What? I mean, as a rule of thumb, okay, if you're just doing the science of things, there can be some, as a pragmatic heuristic in a scientific compartment, if you don't do this with your whole life, but you just, as a sociologist, you just assume that every presumption that civilization makes about human nature is probably propaganda and probably something closer to the opposite of what human nature really is, I think that will actually get you far. It is actually a pretty good investigative heuristic, but it is a horrible way to live your life. You'd be better off being some kind of pure hedonist that just totally goes with the flow. I mean, you picture two people, me, and then compare me with, let's say, Like you've got a totally rebellious guy like me that just does the opposite every time. And he winds up profoundly confused. I mean, this is why Jordan Peterson warns against lying, because it's about confusing yourself or not. If you compare me to, let's take a stereotypical person. So all right, I'm going to engage your racism instead of showcasing mine. That way you have less that you can bitch about. So you pick the race of person. You pick the gender of person. You pick the type of person that you can hold in your mind as the sort of opposite of what I am. A person that generally just kind of didn't question things. They're someone that you could rightly accuse of being kind of a sheeple. They kind of just went with everything. They went with everything. They submitted to the process. They generally submitted even to the effed up culture, you know? They generally maybe judged themselves too much. They shamed themselves too much. They shamed their own sexuality, you know, but they, let's say, so, you know, who knows what part of the world they're from? Who knows what subculture they're in? But they just kind of went with it. And then they just live this ho-hum life, right? So they got married in their 20s or 30s. They started having some kids. They stay, you know, fairly close to their family. Again, these are all things that fit with this awful stereotype that I just put out, right? This is just, they went with the process. They accepted the shames and acculturations. Would this be good for the whole culture at large? I'm saying I think it actually will. That's how this is a declaration of my faith in humanity. A deepening of my faith in humanity so that I can deepen my faith in myself, so that I can even find some. I no longer think that the best way out of this mess, to whatever extent we even are in a mess, to whatever extent you may or may not agree or see or, you know, find valid the hypothesis that humans are in a mess. Maybe I'm wrong, you know? Maybe Daniel Quinn is wrong. Maybe life is just a mess. And maybe that's just an interpretation. But it's just this faith that living a normal life, and I'm not talking about obsessively being normal. I'm not saying be normal because you should. I'm saying be normal because you want to. Because deep down inside, what you most deeply want, I think, will guide us en masse the most sustainably. You don't have to rebel. You can relax. You can take it easy. You can take it easy. You can start letting go of all the jobs. You're doing them instinctually. You're trying to do a good job because that's what humans do. So that's beautiful. You don't need to get down on yourself for having done all of that. But you can take it easy. And you can rest assured that the people, the sheeple that you look around at that are so awful in their submission to the process, you can start appreciating them a little more. Start loving them, loving yourself. And in a way, let it go, let it go. What you will find at the end of that is your brotherly love, your sisterly love, that you want to be connected and happy, that you want to be satisfied. Don't let the people like me who are trying to rescue you from the capitalistic blah, blah, blah actually end up putting you ever more deeply in it. Because in order to rebel, you become an isolated individual. Atomized and angry, afraid of connection, afraid of submission, and therefore afraid to submit to even the most basic of your own needs. I was wrong, and I'm not going to keep doing this, I don't think. I think one way or another this can't keep happening. It's just not sustainable. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've already given up my cats. I've already given up my apartment. I think I'm pulling myself up by my bootstraps and disentangling from the attachments so that I'm a self-possessed individual just enough to like give myself again and actually let it go this time. Whether it's a woman or a community, it's just about submitting. The Christians were right about it, you know? There's a reason why these things evolved. Attitudes like that one, just submit. It sounds horrible, right? It sounds so stupid. You think, no, you gotta throw open the window and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not gonna take it anymore. But that turns out to be more like an important phase. Because at the end of the day, if you're really submitting, you're submitting to yourself. You're submitting to what you want. And that's actually following your bliss. That's actually letting it go. Hold on tightly. Yeah, whatever the song lyrics are, you know, that one. Hold on loosely, but don't let go. Oh God, that's definitely. It got me at just the right angle. It like came back. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.